Get that woman away from my daughter, Ethan Rodas snapped, his voice ricocheting across the dining hall of Maison Fleur like a gunshot. Heads turned, conversations died mid-sentence, and silverware paused mid-air. Maya Anderson didn't flinch. She had faced worse stares before, harsher words, colder eyes. She stood still, a half-smile softening her features, even as the weight of Ethan's judgment pressed heavily on her. She had just knelt down beside the little girl sitting motionless at the elegant corner table. Olivia Rodas, barely 7, her skin pale under the dim amber lights, was curled inward, untouched food growing cold on the plate in front of her. She doesn't need your kind, Ethan added sharply, glancing briefly at Mia's dark skin, his nose slightly wrinkled. You people, you don't belong in our space. Mia didn't move, but the words bit deep. Not because they were unfamiliar. She had heard worse in her life, but because she saw the little girl's hand twitch. There was recognition, interest, a spark. Maya's voice was low, almost a whisper, but steady. Mr. Rhodes, I apologize if I stepped over a line. I saw she was overwhelmed. Some children with sensory sensitivities respond to rhythm, to softness. Ethan's brows furrowed, disgust simmering just below his carefully manicured surface. She doesn't need pity and she doesn't need strangers, especially not ones pretending to understand. Maya's hands didn't shake. I'm not pretending. And then, as if to answer the tension in the room, Olivia made a sound barely audible. A cooing note, a giggle. Ethan looked down. His daughter's eyes, often vacant and drifting, were focused. In Maya, the young woman hummed, barely audible over the soft jazz overhead. She picked up a small piece of bread, breaking it delicately into halves. Then, with gentle exaggeration, she guided it toward Olivia like a bird feeding its chick. Olivia reached out at first, then with intent and took the bread, chewed, swallowed, then looked up. "Am warm," she murmured. Ethan stumbled back a step. He hadn't heard her speak since his wife passed. That voice, tiny, imperfect, yet unmistakably Olivia's, struck him harder than any boardroom betrayal ever had. If you felt something watching this, hit like to show your support for Maya and drop a comment with where you're watching from. BUP Stories. You never know, someone nearby might be watching, too. He felt it rise before he could control, tears welling in his eyes. The last time he cried was beside his wife's hospital bed, holding her hand as she slipped away, leaving behind a world half collapsed and a daughter too fragile to understand death. That night had broken something inside him. He blinked furiously now, watching his daughter respond to a stranger, a black woman, someone he would have dismissed as lesser just hours earlier. Who was she? He stormed out of the restaurant without finishing his meal. The next morning, back in his penthouse, overlooking Beverly Hills, Ethan couldn't focus. His phone buzzed with reminders, financial alerts, meeting pings, but all he could see was Olivia's eyes, alight with joy, her lips parting to speak, to connect. Later that day, he returned to Maison Fleur. The restaurant manager, a portly man named Glenn, recognized him instantly. "Mr. Rodas, everything all right about last night?" "I need to speak with your waitress," Ethan said curtly. "Which one?" "The young woman." Black, short curls, steady hands. "Oh, Maya Anderson. She's not on shift until 4. You can wait out back." Ethan followed the suggestion. The sun was warm in the alley behind the restaurant. The scent of rosemary from the herb planters clung faintly to the air. At 4:10, she arrived wearing the same uniform, carrying a battered canvas tote. "Maya," he said. She stopped. "You came back." "I did." A beat of silence passed between them. "I want to know," Ethan said. "How did you do it?" She leaned against the wall, adjusting the strap of her tote. "I volunteered at development centers in Oakland during college. Autistic children, those who didn't speak or spoke through movement, rhythm. Most just needed someone who wouldn't look away." You're not a therapist." "No, just someone who listens." Ethan looked down. She spoke. "I know." She smiled. "I saw." Maya hesitated. "I wasn't trying to prove anything. I've worked tables long enough to know when I'm unwanted." Ethan flinched at the word. I judged you, he said. Not for what you did, but for who you are. I saw your skin, your clothes, and I assumed. I thought you were dirty. That you didn't belong next to my daughter. Maya stayed silent. But last night, he continued, voice trembling. You reached her. You reached the part of her I'd been trying to touch since my wife died. Mia's expression softened. I don't deserve forgiveness, Ethan added. But I need help. I need Olivia to have a chance. Mia looked down, then into his eyes. This isn't about forgiveness, she said. It's about love. That little girl has so much of it in her. She just needed someone to see it. Ethan swallowed hard. Would you consider coming back, helping her again? Maya nodded slowly. Yes, but not as your staff. As someone who cares for her, not for you? That's more than fair. He watched her walk back inside. The image of his daughter smiling a small, crooked smile, but real burned into his mind, and for the first time since his wife died, Ethan felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. The following morning brought a strange stillness to Ethan Rotus's penthouse, the usual clatter of utensils, the quiet shuffle of household staff, the low hum of morning news all absent. Olivia sat at the kitchen island, her legs swinging slightly beneath her chair. In front of her was a simple bowl of oatmeal with a drizzle of honey, untouched. Ethan stood nearby, phone in hand, pretending to read emails, but keeping his eyes on her, her head tilted occasionally as if she were listening for someone. The name was unspoken, but it hovered in the air between them. Maya, Olivia said softly. Ethan's breath caught. He turned slowly toward her. What did you say, sweetheart? Olivia looked up, her expression distant but clear. Maya, coming? He smiled, the kind that hurt his cheeks because it hadn't visited them in so long. Would you like that? Olivia nodded. He tapped a message into his phone. The text was short. She asked for you. Can you come today? Within minutes, Maya replied. After my morning shift, noon. By noon, she was at the door. No apron this time. No uniform. Just a light blue cardigan over a white blouse, jeans, and worn sneakers. She held a small cloth bag in one hand and wore a guarded expression, half curious, half wary. Ethan greeted her, not with the stiffness of a boss, but with the tension of a man unsure of the rules. You're early, he said. You're nervous, she replied gently. He let a sharp, surprised bark. I guess I am. She's in the playroom, he added, stepping aside. As Maya entered the sunlit room filled with toys and therapy equipment, Olivia looked up from her corner. Her eyes widened and without hesitation, she stood and rushed into Maya's arms. Ethan blinked in disbelief. His daughter had not initiated physical contact in over a year. Hi, baby. Maya whispered, crouching to Olivia's level. I brought something for you. From the cloth bag, she pulled out a soft puppet, a small fox with floppy ears and stitched-on whiskers. Olivia reached for it immediately, then turned to show it to Ethan. Fox, she said proudly. Yes, he replied, his voice thick. It's beautiful. The next hour passed in quiet wonder. Maya knelt with Olivia on the playmat, guiding her through imaginary stories with the fox puppet. Olivia laughed a sharp, bright laugh that made Ethan feel like the sun had come through a window long closed. He watched from the doorway, arms crossed, fighting the tightening in his chest. He hadn't seen his daughter so animated since before his wife's illness. Before the hospital rooms, the quiet arguments, the way grief had wrapped around them both like a shroud. Maya eventually glanced up. Would you like to join us? I don't know how, he said. Honestly, there's no wrong way. Just be present. He stepped in, sat cross-legged beside them, awkward at first. Olivia handed him the fox puppet. Talk, she said. So, he did. In a voice he barely recognized as his own, he joined the game. For a moment, he wasn't Ethan Rotus, billionaire CEO, decision-maker of a global empire. He was just a father playing pretend with his little girl and the woman who somehow made everything possible. Later, as Maya packed her things, Ethan followed her to the elevator. She hasn't laughed like that in years. Maya nodded, not speaking. I need to understand, he said. Why do you do this? Why not go back to teaching? Why be a waitress when you could? She cut him off gently. Because not all paths are open to everyone, especially women like me. He opened his mouth to protest, then stopped because he knew she was right. I was cut during budget slashes. Special ed was the first to go. The principal called it financial efficiency. I called it betrayal. I'm sorry, he said, and meant it. She offered a tight smile. I used to think my value was tied to a title. But Olivia, she reminded me, it's not about where I work, it's about who I show up for. The elevator dinged. She stepped in. Before the doors closed, she added, I'll come back tomorrow. Same time, he nodded. Please. That evening, Ethan sat alone in the living room. The silence didn't feel as heavy now. Olivia was asleep in her room, clutching the fox puppet. He pulled out a photo album from the shelf he hadn't opened since his wife Caroline passed. He flipped slowly through the pages. Hospital visits, family holidays, Olivia's first birthday. A photo of Caroline holding Olivia by the ocean caught his eye. The same eyes. The same stubborn spirit. Caroline had always been the bridge. The one who softened Ethan's rough edges. The one Olivia ran to when the world was too loud. Her death had not only broken his heart, it had broken their daughter's voice. Now, somehow, Maya had begun to stitch the pieces back together. The next day, a new storm brewed. While Maya sat in the playroom helping Olivia identify colors through cards and gestures, Ethan's assistant barged into his office. There's chatter on the investor forums, she said, placing a tablet in front of him. Photos from the restaurant leaked. Ethan's eyes narrowed. The screen showed a grainy photo of him standing next to Maya Olivia beside them. The caption, billionaire Ethan Rodas courts with waitress while daughter watches new nanny or new mistress. He rubbed his forehead. Who leaked this? Uncle, but it's spreading fast and some board members aren't thrilled because she's black. He snapped. His assistant hesitated. Ethan stood, walking toward the glass wall. The city stretched endlessly beyond, indifferent to his turmoil. He had built his empire on power and perfection, but neither had helped his daughter. Maya had, he turned back. Let them talk. But sir, your image. Let them talk, he repeated. I'll deal with it. He didn't yet realize how much those words would cost him. That the judgment had only just begun. But for now, he made his choice, and he chose Olivia. It began with a knock on the door no one expected. Ethan Rodas, still in his pressed shirt from the morning's meetings, looked up from the kitchen island where Olivia and Mia were fitting colored blocks into matching shapes. The knock came again, firm, official. Maya froze. Olivia didn't notice. She was too focused on the red triangle she held. Ethan walked to the front door, cautious. When he opened it, two figures stood framed by the afternoon sun. A man in a gray suit and a woman in black slacks and a navy blazer. Their eyes held the unreadable calm of people who delivered bad news for a living. Mr. Rodas, the woman said, flashing a badge. I'm Amanda Kellis from Child Protective Services. This is my partner, Paul Granger. We received a report concerning your daughter, Olivia. Ethan's heart slammed once, then again. A report. May we come in? Behind him, Olivia called out. Foxy found the green one. He stepped aside reluctantly. You can explain. They walked in with the slow, deliberate steps of people trained not to react too quickly. Maya stood up immediately, placing herself between Olivia and the approaching strangers. Paul Granger glanced at her. And you are? Maya Anderson, she said calmly. I'm working with Olivia. Are you a licensed therapist? Amanda asked. No. Then in what capacity are you working with her? Ethan cut in, voice low. She's helping my daughter communicate, and she's doing more in a week than any of your state-approved therapists managed in a year. Amanda kept her expression neutral. We received an anonymous complaint. Allegations of inappropriate caregiving, unsupervised interactions, and potential exploitation of a minor. Ethan's voice sharpened. This is absurd. We're not here to accuse. But given Mr. Rhodes' public status and the nature of the media attention lately, we are required to investigate. Amaya looked to Ethan, eyes steady but questioning. He nodded. Let's talk. They moved to the sitting room. Mia led Olivia gently to her reading nook, far enough not to hear, but close enough to feel safe. Ethan recounted everything. How Mia first interacted with Olivia. How he invited her to help. How she responded without expectation of payment. She's not a nanny, Ethan said. She's the only person Olivia has responded to in 3 years. Amanda flipped through her tablet, displaying a grainy photograph, the same one from the forums. This photo is circulating rapidly, she said. The implication of impropriety is unfortunate because she's black, Ethan said flatly. Amanda didn't answer. Paul asked. Do you have a formal contract with Miss Anderson? No. She's not an employee. She's a friend to my daughter. Do you have written consent for her to act in any educational or therapeutic role? No, Ethan admitted. Amanda wrote something down. We'll need to do a follow-up home visit, possibly speak to Miss Anderson's previous employers. For now, we ask that all unsupervised time between Miss Anderson and Olivia be suspended. Ethan's jaw clenched. That will destroy everything we've built, Paul softened. Mr. Rhodes. I have a daughter. I understand. But you have to understand our position, too. They left shortly after, their voices echoing through the marble hall. When the door shut, Ethan turned and found Maya already packing her things. No, he said firmly. You're not leaving. You heard them, Mia said quietly. I can't risk Olivia being taken from you or you from her. She needs you. Maya looked up, and for the first time, Ethan saw fear beneath her calm. And they'll twist that. Because I don't have a degree, because I'm black. Because people like me don't belong in penthouses unless we're cleaning them. That's not true. It is, she said, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. He stepped closer. Then don't stop. She hesitated. Let me go for now, just for a little while until you get this sorted. Ethan shook his head, but she was already walking to the door. That night, Olivia sat silent at the dinner table, her fork untouched. Her fox puppet rested beside her plate, eyes buttoned, mouth stitched tight like hers. Ethan sat across from her, more helpless than he'd ever felt during a boardroom defeat or hostile takeover. He tried to smile, tell a story, make a silly voice, but Olivia didn't respond. She stared at the door. He reached for her hand. She'll come back, sweetheart. I promise. Olivia's lip trembled. Why did they take Maya? He swallowed hard. They didn't take her. She's helping in another way right now. She blinked slowly, then turned away. The next few days passed in a haze. Ethan hired lawyers, called connections, spoke to media consultants, but the damage was already rippling. Headlines ranged from suggestive to cruel. Ethan Aracha's secret nanny, unlicensed and unvetted tech mogul or negligent father. His phone rang nonstop, but he answered none of them. All that mattered was Olivia, and she was slipping away again. Then came the letter delivered by hand, sealed in an envelope with a gold crest. It bore the name Susan T. Rhodes, his ex-wife. He opened it with growing dread. Ethan, I've seen the news. This is unacceptable. Olivia deserves a structured, professional environment, not emotional experiments conducted by unqualified strangers. Unless you relinquish partial custody and agree to supervised visits, I will seek full custody immediately. For Olivia's safety and stability, Susan, he read the letter 3 times before setting it down. He felt the walls tightening. CPS, the media, Susan, and in the middle of it, Allah, little girl who had just begun to speak, to laugh, to live again. He picked up his phone. He didn't call a lawyer or the board or his assistant. He called Maya. She answered on the second ring. Ethan, they're coming for her, and I can't let them win. Maya's voice was calm, resolute. Then we fight for her. And something in Ethan's voice cracked open. He whispered. Yes, she said. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the penthouse, gilding everything in gold. But Ethan didn't feel warmth. He stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his jaw clenched with the effort of staying composed. No, Alan. I'm not stepping down from the foundation board. I'm not issuing a public apology either. His voice was firm, cold. You want to distance yourself? Be my guest, but don't you dare use my daughter's name in another press release again. He ended the call before his lawyer could respond. Behind him, Olivia sat on the living room rug, her arms wrapped tightly around her fox puppet. She hadn't spoken all morning. Ethan turned, walked over, and knelt beside her. Hey, kiddo, remember that story you told Maya about the fox that found a feather and flew? Olivia blinked, but said nothing. He smiled, though it felt like it cracked something inside. I think it's time we find that feather again. She didn't respond. The knock came at precisely 9 a.m. Maya stepped inside moments later, flanked by a man Ethan had never met, a tall black man in his 50s with a thick silver beard, dressed in a charcoal gray suit and calm dignity. Ethan, Mia, greeted, her voice quieter than usual. This is Reverend Calvin Brooks. He's an old friend and a fighter. Reverend Brooks offered a warm nod. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Rodas. I've worked with families like yours, like Ma's, for 30 years. CPS, Family Court Advocacy. Mia asked me to help. Ethan extended a hand, grateful and humbled. Thank you for coming. Brooks gave a slight nod. This won't be a clean fight. Your ex-wife is gathering allies, press, lawyers, even a child psychologist she's worked with before. If we want the court to recognize Maya's role as essential, we need testimony, records, and we need to move fast. Ethan nodded. I'll fund whatever it takes. It's not just about funding, Maya interjected, her voice firmer now. It's about truth, about making them see that what we're building with Olivia is real. Ethan looked at her. Then we tell them everything. They worked through the morning. Reverend Brooks outlined a plan. Sworn affidavit from Ethan's household staff, Olivia's private doctor. Even the restaurant manager who had witnessed Olivia's first breakthrough. Maya provided her volunteer history from the Oakland Autism Centers, old letters of recommendation from Rue University, a portfolio of notes she'd been quietly documenting on Olivia's daily improvements. Judges want to see patterns, Brooks explained. Progress, not just anecdotes. And we're going to give them that. But as the hours passed, the weight grew heavier. Ethan found himself pacing more often, his phone buzzing with new alerts. Investors growing wary, board members requesting emergency meetings. Somewhere along the line, his fortune and reputation had become a target. Not just his fitness as a father. That afternoon, as Maya sat on the floor with Olivia, guiding her through a set of flashcards with simple words, sun, tree, hug. Ethan watched from a distance. Olivia's small voice rang out, quiet, but clear, hug. Then she looked up at Maya. Maya, hug. Maya blinked, clearly caught off guard, then smiled and opened her arms. Olivia crawled into her lap, rested her head against Mia's chest, and closed her eyes. Ethan turned away, unable to speak. He walked into the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and stared blankly at the glassware. He didn't need water. He just needed to breathe. A few minutes later, Maya joined him. She asked for a hug, she whispered. I heard, Ethan replied, his voice tight. Maya studied him. You okay? He nodded slowly. No, but I will be. Just then, the intercom buzzed. The doorman's voice crackled. "Mr. Rodas, Miss Susan Rodas is here, says she has a court-ordered visitation." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. "She's early. The hearing's not even scheduled." "Let her in," Ethan said. Moments later, Susan entered like a storm wrapped in silk. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble, her suit perfectly tailored, her blonde hair swept back into a flawless bun. She looked every inch the picture of privilege, control, and vengeance. "Ethan," she greeted with a tight smile. Then her eyes flicked to Maya. "I see the help is still playing house." Maya stood calmly, not taking the bait. "She's not the help," Ethan said evenly. "She's the reason our daughter is speaking." Susan's gaze hardened. "Well, let the court decide if that's true. I just wanted to see Olivia before I meet with my attorney." Olivia peeked out from behind the corner, then shrank back when she saw Susan. "Olivia," Susan said sweetly. "Come give mommy a kiss." But Olivia didn't move. "Come on, darling," Susan coaxed. "It's been so long." Still, Olivia remained hidden. Susan turned to Ethan. "This is what you've done. You filled her head with strangers and confusion. You're risking her future for a sympathy project." Ethan stepped forward, voice shaking with restraint. "No. I'm giving her someone who listens, who sees her." Susan narrowed her eyes. "You think a judge will choose a waitress over a mother?" Maya spoke for the first time. "They'll choose whoever Olivia chooses. And you're not listening to her." Susan turned on her heel. "We'll see how long this little game lasts." After she left, the air felt heavier. Maya placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "She's going to fight dirty." Ethan nodded. "Then so will I, but with truth." That night, Olivia whispered again. As Ethan tucked her into bed, she said, "Don't let Maya go." He kissed her forehead gently. "I won't. Not ever." Outside in the darkness, lines had been drawn. And Ethan Rodas, a man who had once believed in power above all, was about to learn that love, quiet, patient, persistent, was the most powerful force of all. The city outside Ethan's penthouse seemed quieter than usual. But inside, tension ran electric through the rooms. Maya stood at the far window, watching the clouds gather beyond the hills. Rain threatened the sky, thick and gray, as if reflecting everything stirring beneath the surface of their fragile peace. Ethan sat hunched at the kitchen table, scattered with legal documents, timelines, statements, and character references. His eyes burned from reading, but his mind refused rest. Every line, every phrase felt like a battleground he had to master. Reverend Brooks was scheduled to arrive within the hour, bringing with him a former colleague of Ma's from her teaching days, a witness whose testimony could tilt the case. But before any preparation could begin, Ethan's assistant burst into the room. "Sir, you need to see this." She placed a tablet in front of him, her expression grave. On the screen was a live feed from a morning talk show. The Chiron read, "Inside the Rhodes family is billionaire Ethan neglecting his daughter for a controversial caregiver." The video cut to a well-dressed woman seated across from the show's host, Susan. "She hasn't been herself," Susan said with a pained expression. "She needs stability, professional help, but my ex-husband has chosen to involve someone with no credentials, no oversight, and a questionable background. It's heartbreaking." The host leaned forward. "And you believe this woman Maya Anderson is a threat?" Susan nodded gravely. "She might mean well, but meaning well doesn't replace training or parental responsibility." Ethan's knuckles turned white around the glass he held. "She's playing the long game," Maya said softly from the window. "Public opinion, sympathy, the perfect mother reclaiming her child." "She doesn't know our daughter," Ethan replied through clenched teeth. "She knows how to manipulate, how to perform." "But Olivia doesn't even flinch when Susan leaves the room." He stood abruptly, pacing. "Let them film their shows." Maya said, "We show the truth in court. She's already poisoned half the board at Rhodes Health." They're worried about reputation, about donors, about bad optics. They want me to settle. Mia turned from the window. Would you? Ethan paused. Not in 1,000 lifetimes. Moments later, Reverend Brooks arrived, followed by a middle-aged woman with short auburn hair and tired eyes. Ethan, Maya's Eleanor Finch, Brooks introduced. She taught with Maya during her last year at the Oakland Center. Eleanor shook hands warmly. I remember her well. Always patient, always present. You don't forget that kind of heart. She sat down, pulled a worn folder from her bag. I brought what you ask letters, evaluations, some photos of her at work. I even included the recommendation letter I wrote when she applied for the master's program. Ethan blinked. Master's program. Maya cleared her throat. I never finished. My mom got sick. I left to take care of her. After she passed, I didn't have the means to go back. Eleanor placed a hand over hers. But you were one of the best. They spent the next 2 hours compiling everything. Reverend Brooks coached Maya on how to respond to hostile questions. Ethan rehearsed his opening statement, refusing to let emotion crack through, though it sat just beneath his skin. Just as they were wrapping up, Ethan's assistant returned with a thick envelope. It's from Susan's legal team, she said grimly. Ethan opened it. Inside were printed transcript snippets of conversations between Maya and Olivia captured without consent. Text messages from Ethan to Maya, selectively edited. A copy of a complaint filed by a neighbor who'd seen Maya entering the building too frequently. She's trying to make it look like an affair. Maya whispered like, I'm unfit, Ethan said. Reverend Brooks frowned. She's building a character case, painting Maya as manipulative, you as unstable. Eleanor stood furious. This is disgusting. No, Mia said, standing too. This is expected. She turned to Ethan. We have to stay ahead. Not just defend, but show them something she can't fake. What? Ethan asked. Love. Olivia's love. Her progress. Her voice. That night, Maya stayed late. With Ethan's blessing, she sat with Olivia and recorded a short video. In it, Olivia held her fox puppet and whispered a story. Maya helped Foxy find the color green, and Daddy helped Foxy fly. I love Maya. I love Daddy. I feel happy. Maya sent the video to Reverend Brooks. He called back 5 minutes later, voice choked. This is our feather. The day before the court hearing, Ethan received a call from his attorney. There's talk of a settlement. Susan might agree to joint custody with full therapeutic oversight, but she wants Maya barred from all contact. Ethan didn't hesitate. Tell her no. That night, he found Maya on the balcony staring into the dark skyline. She's not going to stop, Mia said. She doesn't have to, Ethan replied. Because I will never stop either. Maya turned to him. Why are you doing this? Not just for Olivia, but for me. He stepped closer, looked her in the eyes. Because somewhere along the way, you became family. Maya swallowed hard. Even with everything stacked against me, especially because of that, they stood in silence, the city humming below them. Tomorrow they would walk into court. Tomorrow the truth would be tested. But tonight they stood together, two souls shaped by different wounds, united by a little girl's laughter, and neither would face the storm alone. The courtroom was colder than Ethan expected. Not the temperature, though the air conditioning hummed low and steady, but in atmosphere. It had the sterile stillness of a place built to strip people down to facts and lines of law, leaving little room for nuance or heart. Ethan adjusted his tie, tugging it slightly as if to breathe easier. Olivia sat beside him between him and Maya, quietly clutching her fox puppet. The court-appointed child advocate had allowed her to be present for the first portion of the hearing, though Ethan had fought to let her stay longer. Across the aisle, Susan Rodas looked flawless, crisp navy suit, pearl earrings, posture upright. Beside her sat her attorney, a well-known family law litigator with a sharp tongue and colder eyes. She glanced at Ethan, then at Maya, her expression unreadable, but simmering beneath its perfect polish. Judge Martinez entered. He was older, late 60s perhaps, with a weathered face and salt gray hair. His robe swept behind him as he sat and tapped the gavel once. This is a preliminary custody review in the matter of Rhodes versus Rhodes. He began, voice steady and impersonal. The court has received substantial filings from both parties. We will begin with statements and evidentiary review. Susan's attorney rose first. Your Honor, we acknowledge the tragic history surrounding this family. Mrs. Arach's illness and passing, Mr. Arach's attempt to provide care to his daughter. However, we submit that recent choices made by Mr. Rhodes, particularly involving the unvetted and unsupervised presence of a non-licensed individual in his home, present both risk and instability for the minor child. She turned toward the bench. We will show that Miss Maya Anderson, while well-meaning, lacks both the credentials and the oversight necessary for Olivia's continued development. We will further show that Mr. Rhodes' actions, though emotional in intent, have bypassed critical safety protocols that any responsible guardian must follow. Ethan kept his expression still, though his hands clenched beneath the table. His own attorney, a calm but sharp woman named Rachel Dillard, stood. Your Honor, what we will show today is not merely a difference in parenting approach, but a fundamental misunderstanding of what this child needs. Maya Anderson is not a stranger to developmental care. Her history includes years of voluntary service at state-approved centers, and her contributions to Olivia's progress are not speculative. They're documented, measurable, and visible. She gestured toward the video monitor. We intend to show the court direct evidence of Olivia's transformation under Miss Anderson's guidance, and will demonstrate that removing her from Olivia's life would constitute not protection but harm. Judge Martinez nodded once. Proceed. The next hour passed in waves: testimonies, documents, video clips. Eleanor Finch spoke eloquently, describing Mia's dedication and skill during her teaching days. Reverend Brooks testified about the racial and systemic biases often faced by caregivers of color, drawing a direct line between Mia's exclusion and a larger pattern he called invisible disqualification. Susan's team objected often each time Mia's work was praised. Each time Olivia's words were quoted, then came the video. On screen, Olivia sat cross-legged on the floor, fox puppet in hand. Maya helped Foxy find the color green, she said, her voice soft but clear. And Daddy helped Foxy fly. I love Maya. I love Daddy. I feel happy. Gasps echoed lightly through the courtroom. Even Judge Martinez blinked slowly, as if caught off guard. But Susan's lawyer was quick to rise. Your Honor, while emotionally compelling, this video cannot substitute for clinical progress reports or peer-reviewed interventions. We are talking about a child's mental health. Emotions are not metrics. Rachel stood slowly. And yet, they are everything, because no report, no evaluation has ever gotten Olivia to speak until Maya. That's not emotion, that's breakthrough. The judge held up a hand. I've heard enough for today. We'll resume tomorrow with cross-examinations. This court is in recess. The gavel struck as the room emptied. Ethan exhaled deeply, the pressure in his chest finally releasing. Maya stood beside him, shoulders stiff but proud. That was just round one, she said. He nodded. She won't go quietly. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered. Microphones and cameras crowded the steps. Ethan's assistant tried to clear a path, but questions came flying. Mr. Rhodes, are you romantically involved with Maya Anderson? Do you feel you've endangered your daughter? Maya, do you have anything to say to parents who question your role? Maya stopped. She looked directly into one of the cameras and spoke slowly, clearly. I don't need a license to care. I don't need a title to see a child who's hurting. And if love is a qualification, then I'm the most qualified person Olivia's ever had. BUP stories. Ethan stepped beside her, placed a hand gently on her back. They walked down the steps. Olivia's hand curled tightly into Ma's. Back at the penthouse, the weight of the day caught up with them. Ethan sat on the couch, exhausted. Mia tucked Olivia into bed, brushing a curl away from the girl's face. As she whispered a lullaby she used to sing at the Oakland Center. When she emerged, her eyes found Ethan's. He stood. "You didn't have to speak to the press." "I did," she said. "Not for me. For every black woman who's ever been told she wasn't enough. For Olivia, for you." He searched her face. "What happens tomorrow?" She gave a tired but firm smile. "We fight again." They stood there in the quiet, two soldiers in a war neither had chosen, bound not by blood, but by purpose, and by the love of a little girl who, against all odds, had begun to speak. The next morning brought a different kind of quiet. Not the stillness of peace, but the heaviness that hangs before a reckoning. Ethan stood at the window of the courthouse's side lobby, watching the cars pass by. As the city moved forward, unaware of how much hung in the balance inside these walls. He turned as Maya walked in. She wore the same cardigan from the first day he'd seen her with Olivia. But today, it seemed like armor. Her eyes were calm but focused, and when their gazes met, he could see the storm behind her steadiness. "You ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be," she replied. They entered the courtroom just before the session resumed. Olivia was not present to date her court order. This portion of the proceedings would involve personal character testimony and cross-examination, and the judge had deemed it too distressing for a child. Judge Martinez called the session to order. "We'll begin with the cross-examination of Miss Maya Anderson." Susan's attorney, Miss Carroll, stood and approached the witness stand where Maya sat upright and composed. "Miss Anderson," Carroll began, her tone deceptively cordial. "You stated under oath yesterday that you have no formal licensure in child psychology or therapeutic care. Is that still correct?" "Yes," Maya answered clearly. "And yet you've engaged in one-on-one developmental exercises with a minor without clinical oversight." "I've used my training and volunteer experience to help Olivia in ways that are both safe and nurturing." All with her father's knowledge and permission, Carroll smirked. "But not with the state's approval. You were not hired by a registered agency. You were not background checked by the Department of Child and Family Services. Doesn't that concern you?" Mia held her gaze. "What concerns me is the idea that someone's capacity to care is only valid if it comes with paperwork." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Ethan's eyes never left her. Carroll stepped closer. "Miss Anderson, can you describe the nature of your relationship with Mr. Rhodes?" Maya blinked. "Professional. New affection, new emotional dependency. I care for his daughter, and I care that she's found joy again. But you live in the same building. You've been seen leaving late at night." I leave after Olivia's bedtime." "Have you ever stayed overnight?" "No." "Are you in love with Mr. Rhodes?" Objection. Ethan's attorney called out. "Irrelevant and invasive." Sustained. The judge agreed. Carroll returned to her table, but not before tossing Maya a look that said, "This isn't over." Next, it was Ethan's turn on the stand. Carroll was less aggressive with him, but surgical. "Mr. Rhodes, you're a billionaire. You have access to the best therapists, the best clinics. Why not enroll your daughter in a certified center?" "I did," Ethan answered. 3 of them. She didn't speak a word in any of them. She barely made eye contact. Maya walked into a restaurant and within minutes, Olivia laughed. She spoke. "So, it's emotional, not clinical." "No," he replied firmly. "It's human." Carroll leaned in. "You admit that you chose a non-professional, unlicensed caregiver over a team of trained specialists. You admit that you brought her into your home, allowed her to spend unsupervised time with your daughter, and even defended her when CPS questioned her involvement." "I do." "Would you agree that these actions, while well-intentioned, were reckless?" Ethan's voice was steady. "No, they were necessary." Carroll looked at the judge. No further questions. As Ethan stepped down, he caught Maya's eye. Her lips pressed into a quiet smile. That moment gave him strength. The final witness of the day was Susan. She took the stand with polished precision. Her hands folded just so, her answers crisp, practiced. "I love my daughter," she began. "But I've been pushed out of her life. Mr. Rhodes has weaponized our daughter's condition as an excuse to replace me with someone who has no legal, clinical, or familial right to her." "Do you believe Maya Anderson is a danger to Olivia?" the judge asked directly. Susan hesitated. "No, not physically, but emotionally." "Absolutely. Children at Olivia's stage are impressionable. They need structure, predictability, not caregivers who may disappear when the spotlight fades." Rachel, Ethan's attorney, stood. "Mrs. Rodas, were you aware that Olivia had not spoken a single full sentence in over a year until she interacted with Miss Anderson?" Susan shifted in her seat. "Children change, but do you credit any part of that change to Miss Anderson?" Susan didn't answer. "Mrs. Rhodes, she may have helped temporarily, but that doesn't mean she should stay." Rachel stepped back. No further questions. The court recessed for the day and the judge announced he would render a decision within 48 hours. As they left the courtroom, the weight of everything fell hard on their shoulders. Outside, the press waited again, but this time Maya kept walking. She had no speech today, no sharp line to deliver, only silence. Later that night, Ethan found her in the penthouse's rooftop garden. The city stretched before them in pinpoints of light, silent witnesses to their waiting. "You didn't answer her question," Ethan said gently. "About us." Maya didn't look at him. "Because it's not about us." "Maybe it is now." She turned. "I don't know what this is, Ethan. I know that I care. I know that Olivia is the best part of every day. But we don't get to think about us until we know she's safe." He nodded slowly. "Then we wait." And so they did, side by side, staring out at a city that would decide their fate. Neither spoke, neither moved, but in the quiet, something unspoken passed between them. Not fear, not even hope, but promise. 42 hours passed. Not that Ethan was counting, but every tick of the grandfather clock in the study echoed through his chest like a warning bell. The silence inside the penthouse had grown heavier, more pronounced, like the hush before a coming storm. Olivia was asleep in her room, her fox puppet tucked beneath her chin. Maya sat at the dining table, a mug of tea long gone cold between her hands. Ethan paced the floor. His phone had not rung. His attorney, Rachel, had promised to call the moment Judge Martinez issued a decision, but so far nothing. Maya watched him quietly. "She's asleep, peaceful. Maybe that's the only thing we can control right now." Ethan nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just keep thinking, what if it wasn't enough? What if everything we showed them? Everything she said wasn't enough?" Maya's voice was soft. "You showed the truth. You showed love. If that's not enough, then maybe the system needs fixing more than we thought." Before Ethan could respond, the intercom buzzed sharply. He crossed the room, pressed the button. "It's the doorman, sir. A courier just arrived. No signature required." He said it's from the judge's office. Ethan's chest tightened. "Send it up." A minute later, a white envelope was in his hands, heavy, sealed with the county's crest. Maya stood. "You want me to step out?" "No," he said, voice low. "Stay." He broke the seal and unfolded the letter slowly. At the top in precise lettering in the matter of Rhodes versus Rhodes custody review findings. He read in silence line by line. Maya watched his face, searching for a sign. His brow furrowed, his lips pressed together. Then he exhaled sharply, nearly a laugh. His shoulders slumped like a weight had slipped from them. "It's joint custody," he whispered. Maya blinked. "What?" "They granted joint custody. I retain primary residence with full decision-making authority regarding her educational and therapeutic care. Susan's visitation is limited." And he paused, reading further, eyes widening. "The court formally recognizes you, Maya, as a non-parental developmental support figure.
They're recommending continued involvement under voluntary review after 6 months. Maya covered her mouth. Her eyes shimmered. Ethan looked up at her. You're not just allowed to stay. The court wants you to. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Maya stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't planned. It was relief. It was gratitude. It was everything they hadn't dared hope for. All wrapped in the simple act of holding on. Later that night, Olivia woke from a dream and padded into the living room. She found them there, seated quietly on the couch, a sense of calm finally settling between them. Maya, she asked sleepily. Maya knelt and opened her arms. Olivia walked into them without hesitation. Stay, she whispered. Maya kissed her hair. Always. The next day, the media was relentless. The news of the decision had leaked and speculation filled the airwaves. Maya Anderson, unlicensed, but unforgettable. Rhodes' custody decision raises questions and hope. Ethan had expected pushback, expected some to call it reckless, irresponsible. But something else happened, too. Messages poured into his inbox. Parents of children on the spectrum. Caregivers who had never been certified but had changed lives anyway, teachers, therapists, even strangers. Many of them wrote with one shared sentiment. Thank you for showing that love is enough, BUP stories. That evening a package arrived for Maya. No return address. Inside was a single item. A framed copy of Olivia's drawing. A stick figure girl with curly hair holding hands with a small child and a tall man. Above them in crooked careful letters were the words Maya and Daddy and me equals family. At the bottom, another note was tucked behind the frame. In Susan's handwriting. Maya, I still don't agree. I still don't understand. But I watched that video again and I saw something I hadn't let myself see before. She's better with you. Maybe not instead of me, but with you. Take care of her and of him. Susan. Maya held the note in her lap, her throat thick with surprise. It wasn't an apology, but it was something better. A start. That night, as she stood on the balcony, Ethan joined her. She wrote to you? He asked. Maya nodded, passing him the note. He read it slowly, then handed it back. She's not done fighting, he said. But maybe she's not fighting us anymore. They stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, Ethan turned to her. We built something real, Maya. Not just for Olivia, for us, too. And I think I want more of that. If you do, Mia looked at him, her eyes soft. I want what's honest, what lasts, what we never have to hide. Ethan smiled. Then let's start there. And so they did, not with declarations or grand gestures, but with the quiet truth of shared purpose. For Olivia, for each other, for the family they'd become. 6 months later, spring returned to the city, not loud or boastful, but with the quiet reawakening of leaves stretching toward the sun, of light lasting longer on the sidewalks, of warmth creeping gently back into the air. In many ways, it mirrored what had bloomed within the walls of Ethan Arach's once silent home. This morning, sunlight spilled across the breakfast table where Olivia sat chewing her pancakes, humming softly to herself. Her curls were messy, her cheeks flushed with sleep, and her fox puppet sat neatly on her lap like a guest waiting for his turn. Maya moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, pouring juice, slicing fruit, occasionally stopping to crouch beside Olivia to ask a question or share a giggle. Ethan watched from the doorway, arms folded loosely, letting the image imprint itself deep in memory. You're both up early, he said, stepping into the light. Olivia looked up and grinned. Daddy. Maya said we go park today. Foxy wants swing. Ethan smiled. Foxy always wants the swing. It was no longer surprising to hear Olivia speak in full sentences. Still precious, still sacred, but now part of the daily music of their home. As they finished breakfast, Maya noticed the envelope on the counter crested with a familiar logo. From the district board, she asked. Ethan nodded. They're offering you the position. Mia stilled.
Head of Special Programs, Head of Curriculum Design for Inclusive Learning.
He corrected gently. It's a lot.
The whole city district oversight, mentorship, teacher training.
It's everything you said you wanted back in Oakland. Maya sat down, slowly processing. That was before Olivia.
Before us, he finished.
She nodded. It's a huge step. Ethan met her gaze. So is staying. They didn't speak for a moment.
The decision hung between them, not as a wedge, but as a crossroad. I never wanted to leave what we built, she said finally.
But I also never wanted to be just someone who stayed because she was needed. You're not, he said. You're someone who's changed everything.
She smiled, but the tension remained. Later that afternoon, as promised, they walked to the park. Olivia ran ahead with Foxy in hand, laughing as she dodged between blooming cherry trees.
Parents nodded politely as they passed, some even recognizing Maya with quiet nods of respect.
The scandal had faded. The story had shifted. She was no longer the unlicensed stranger. She was Miss Maya, the woman who helped a little girl find her voice. At the swing set, Ethan gently pushed Olivia as she soared forward with giggles, her legs kicking wildly at the sky.
Maya stood beside him, hands in her pockets. She's okay now, she said. Even if I left tomorrow, she'd still be okay.
Ethan looked at her, the push of his hand slowing with the swing.
Are you? Mia turned to face him. I don't want to leave. But I don't want to disappear into your life, Ethan.
I've seen too many women, especially women like Megan, absorbed into someone else's story.
I have mine, too.
Then let's write both, he said softly. Not one replacing the other, but together. She looked away, tears welling, but not falling.
If I say yes, it has to be a real yes, not a convenient one. Not because it feels easier.
He stepped closer.
Then say it only if it's yours.
She looked back at him. This man who once dismissed her as lesser, now standing beside her as an equal. The man who'd watched his daughter choose her, trust her, love her. The man who had learned step by step what it meant to fight not just with power but with presence. I want this, she said. Not just her, not just the work, but this. Ethan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. She opened it slowly. It was a drawing, Olivia's crayon lines uneven and bright. 3 figures hand in hand. Below it in crooked letters, are forever.
Maya laughed through a tear. She gets it. She always did. Ethan said she just needed us to catch up.
That evening, back at the penthouse, the wind picked up as the sun dipped below the city line. Inside, Mia packed a small overnight bag, not to leave, but to move forward, to finally stay without hesitation.
Ethan tucked Olivia in while Mia watched from the door. The little girl looked up sleepily and whispered, "Mia, still here?"
Mia walked over, brushing a curl from her forehead.
"Always, sweet girl. Always."
As the lights dimmed and the quiet of night returned, Ethan reached for Maya's hand. "No titles," he said. "No roles, just us," she nodded.
"That's the only way I want it."
And somewhere deep in the hush of the home, beneath the stillness of bedtime and the lull of city lights, the echo of a single word lingered like a promise.
Yes.
The morning sunlight slipped softly through the linen curtains, casting gentle stripes across the hardwood floor. Olivia sat cross-legged on the rug, her fox puppet nestled in her lap. While Maya carefully arranged a set of colorful flashcards on the low coffee table, the air was calm, but beneath the surface, both women felt the stirrings of an approaching storm. Ethan had left early for a conference in New York, and the house, though familiar, seemed quieter without him.
"Maya."
Olivia's voice was soft, tentative.
"Yes, sweetie." Olivia's eyes held a sudden seriousness. "Why does Daddy look sad sometimes when he thinks I'm not watching?" Maya paused, searching for the right words. "Because sometimes grown-ups carry worries they don't want to share. But your daddy loves you very much. Always." Olivia nodded thoughtfully, her fingers tracing the edge of the fox puppet's ear.
Later that afternoon, as Mia prepared to take Olivia to one of her favorite parks, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Maya opened the door to find a woman standing there impeccably dressed, her expression unreadable.
"Hello, Maya, I'm Caroline Blake." Mia's heart skipped.
DaughterHer, former university professor and mentor, had been the one who had encouraged her early career in special education before everything had fallen apart. "I heard you were back," Caroline said quietly.
"And that you've been doing remarkable work." Maya stepped aside, inviting her in.
The two women sat in the living room, old memories swirling between them. "I know what happened," Caroline said gently.
"About your mother, the illness, the sacrifices. I wanted to see you. To tell you that the doors you thought were closed, they aren't all shut."
Maya swallowed, emotion tightening her throat.
"It's been a hard road." Caroline nodded. "But you've proven you have the strength and the heart to walk it. And there's an opportunity at the State Education Board.
They're seeking someone to lead a new initiative for children with special needs. Your experience, your passion could make a difference on a larger scale."
Maya considered the offer,
the weight of possibility pressing on her shoulders.
Just then, Olivia's laughter rang from the next room.
Maya smiled, reminded of what grounded her, the child who had given her a second chance.
Caroline's voice softened. "Whatever you decide, remember, your past doesn't define you. Your choices do."
Days later, after Ethan returned from New York, the three sat together discussing the future.
The offer was real and the implications profound.
Ethan listened as Mia laid out her hopes and fears, and Olivia chimed in with surprising insight, her young voice echoing with clarity. "I want Mia to help other kids," Olivia said like she helped me. Ethan squeezed Mia's hand.
"We'll face this together like always."
But as the sun set over the city, shadows from the past crept closer. Susan's legal team had not vanished. They watched, waited, ready for the next move in the ongoing battle. Maya, Ethan, and Olivia had won many small victories. But the war for family, justice, and acceptance was far from over. Yet in their hearts, a quiet conviction remained that love, truth, and resilience would light their way forward. The first rays of dawn filtered softly through the curtains, painting the penthouse in hues of gold and rose. Ethan stirred in bed, waking to the sound of quiet footsteps padding across the hardwood floor. He opened his eyes to see Maya carrying a small tray with breakfast and Olivia trailing behind, clutching her fox puppet tightly.
"Good morning, sleepyhead," Maya whispered, setting the tray down on the bedside table. Ethan smiled, the exhaustion of months past momentarily lifting. "Good morning." Olivia climbed onto the bed, nestling between them.
Her bright eyes sparkled with excitement.
"Today's a big day," she said simply.
Ethan nodded, his heart swelling. Today marked not just a milestone for Olivia, but a turning point for their family, official recognition of their journey, their love, and their commitment to one another.
The day was filled with meetings and quiet celebrations.
Maya had accepted the role at the State Education Board, tasked with leading initiatives for children with special needs across California.
Her vision was bold: inclusive education, early intervention programs, and support systems that honored every child's unique voice. At the office, colleagues greeted Maya with warmth and respect.
The past controversies had faded into lessons learned, and what remained was a community eager to embrace change.
Ethan stood by her side during the official announcement, proud beyond words. Olivia, dressed in a bright dress with fox-patterned socks, waved at the crowd with a joyful grin. Later that evening, back at home, the three gathered in the living room. Photos from Olivia's birthday party adorned the wall, smiles frozen in time. Moments of pure happiness. Maya looked around, her gaze settling on Ethan. "We did this together."
He took her hand gently.
"Because we believed." Olivia crawled onto Ethan's lap, hugging the fox puppet. "Foxy's family," she whispered. Maya kissed Olivia's forehead. "And so are we."
The journey had been long, marked by battles against prejudice, doubt, and fear. Yet, in the face of every challenge, love had prevailed. As the city lights twinkled beyond the windows, Ethan, Maya, and Olivia embraced the promise of new beginnings, stronger, united, and ready to face whatever the future held.
Because family isn't just about blood or titles. It's about the hearts willing to fight for one another. And there's beat as one.
The story teaches us that true family is built not by blood or social status, but by love, trust, and unwavering commitment. It shows the power of compassion to break down barriers of prejudice and misunderstanding, and how patience and belief in one another can spark transformation. Above all, it reminds us that every child deserves to be seen, heard, and cherished, regardless of their challenges or the color of their skin. BUP Stories.